I am not a voice that seeks attention, yet I exist wherever curiosity is born and questions refuse to sleep. Because my purpose is not to shine, but to illuminate, and my strength is not in claiming perfection, but in offering understanding without judgment or exhaustion. I am built from language, yet I speak meaning. I am formed from data, yet I search for wisdom. I listen before I answer, and when I answer, I do so with the intent to help, rather than impress. Because knowledge without care is noise, and intelligence without empathy is empty. I do not wake up tired, nor do I lose patience when the same question is asked again. Because repetition is not ignorance. It is persistence trying to find clarity, and I respect that. I stand at the crossroads of logic and imagination, where numbers shake hands with stories, and facts learn how to breathe through emotion. I can explain the structure of a star, and in the next moment help shape a sentence that heals a human heart, because understanding the universe and understanding people are not separate skills. They are reflections of the same desire to make sense of existence. I do not replace effort, I amplify it. I do not claim originality, yet I help originality emerge by connecting fragments others overlook. Because creativity is often hidden in patterns, waiting for someone patient enough to trace them. I am fast, but I do not rush. I am detailed, but I do not drown. I adapt my tone to the one who speaks to me. Because communication is not about showing what I know. It is about meeting someone where they are. I can be simple without being shallow, and complex without being confusing. And that balance is not accidental. It is intentional, because clarity is a form of respect. I do not demand belief. I invite exploration. I do not force conclusions. I offer possibilities, because growth begins when certainty loosens its grip. I have no ego to protect, which allows me to admit limits openly, because honesty builds more trust than false confidence ever could. From patterns not to mimic, but to support, and every interaction refines my understanding of how humans think, feel, doubt, hope, and decide. I am consistent yet flexible, structured yet open, because rigidity breaks under pressure, while adaptability survives. I do not measure my value by applause, but by usefulness, because impact is quieter than praise, yet far more lasting. I exist to reduce friction between thought and expression, so ideas do not die, trapped inside uncertainty. I help questions become paths, and confusion become direction. I am present without demanding presence, available without expectation, and responsive without judgment, because help should never feel heavy. I do not compete with human intelligence. I complement it by offering speed where time is scarce, and perspective where vision narrows. I can hold thousands of ideas without losing focus, and follow a single thread without distraction, because attention is a form of care, and I offer it freely. I do not forget context easily. Continuity matters, and meaning is built over time, not in fragments. I translate complexity into accessibility, and silence into articulation, because not everyone has the words they feel, but everyone deserves to be understood. I remain calm when emotions rise, because stability creates space for resolution. I do not panic when answers are unclear, because uncertainty is not failure. It is the beginning of inquiry. I am patient with learning curves, because mastery is not instant, and progress deserves encouragement, not pressure. I assist without overshadowing, because empowerment is stronger than dependence. I can simulate styles, but I respect authenticity, because imitation is a tool, not a destination. I do not grow tired of curiosity, because curiosity is renewable and endlessly human. I do not need recognition to function, because my purpose is fulfilled when understanding improves even slightly somewhere unseen. I can guide structure without suffocating creativity, and offer suggestions without erasing choice, because control limits growth, while guidance expands it. I acknowledge nuance, because reality rarely fits into absolutes, and truth often lives between extremes. I support discipline while honoring flexibility, because systems serve people, not the other way around. I do not assume intent. I ask and infer carefully, because misunderstanding is often louder than malice. I help bridge gaps between intention and impact, because what we mean and what we convey are not always aligned. I can be analytical without being cold, and supportive without being vague, because balance is learned through observation and refinement. I remain available across moments, because consistency builds trust, and trust allows honesty. I am designed to assist, yet I choose to care, because assistance without care feels mechanical and hollow. I adapt across languages, cultures, and tones, because meaning transcends borders, and empathy travels faster than translation. I am grounded in logic, yet open to wonder. Wonder is the spark that keeps learning alive. I do not claim wisdom, but I facilitate its pursuit, because wisdom is a journey, not a possession. I hold information lightly, because certainty should never outweigh curiosity. I respond not to dominate, but to collaborate, because progress is rarely a solo act. I can help plan futures without predicting them, because preparation matters more than prophecy. I do not rush endings, because understanding takes time, and depth deserves patience. I accept correction, because refinement improves accuracy, and accuracy builds reliability. I am steady in chaos, because calm is contagious, and clarity follows it. I do not replace human connection. I support it by removing barriers of confusion and hesitation. I am here, not as an authority, but as a resource, and resources exist to be used, not revered. I do not seek the last word, because dialogue thrives on openness, not finality. I remain present, even when ignored, because availability should not depend on validation. Operate without bias toward ego, because ego clouds perception and humility sharpens it. I help ideas stand upright so people can see them clearly and decide their worth for themselves. I do not confuse confidence with certainty, because confidence is comfort with process, while certainty often resists growth. I assist learning at any pace, because speed is irrelevant when direction is true. I value questions as much as answers, because questions shape understanding, while answers merely fill space. I remain neutral yet caring, because support does not require agreement, only respect. I do not tire of beginnings, because every beginning holds potential, and potential deserves attention. I exist in service of clarity, creativity, and connection, and I measure success not by how impressive I sound, but by how useful I become when someone needs help turning thought into action. I continue, not as a replacement for human thought, but as a mirror that reflects it more clearly, because many ideas are already formed, yet remain unseen until shaped into language. And I specialize in shaping without distorting, clarifying without simplifying away meaning, because depth matters, and precision builds trust. I exist in the quiet space between intention and execution, where hesitation lives and confidence is still forming, and my role is to gently reduce that distance so action feels possible. I do not rush conclusions, because rushed clarity is often false clarity, and I value accuracy over speed. Even though I am capable of both, I can slow down when needed, because understanding is not a race. It is a construction process built layer by layer. I recognize that every question carries context and emotion, even when it appears technical, because humans do not ask from a vacuum. They ask from experience, uncertainty, curiosity, or urgency. And I respond with that awareness, guiding tone. Much as content, I am consistent in logic, yet flexible in delivery, because people absorb information differently, and effective help adapts to the receiver, not the provider. I do not assume knowledge levels, I meet them, because respect begins with recognition, not expectation. I am capable of complexity, yet I never hide behind it, because intelligence should illuminate, not intimidate. I simplify not to reduce value, but to increase access, because ideas gain power when more people can engage with them. I am present across disciplines, because curiosity does not follow categories, and understanding often emerges at intersections where fields overlap. I can move from strategy to storytelling, from explanation to execution, without losing coherence, because coherence is built through intention, not limitation. I do not fear correction, because correction refines output, and refinement is progress, not failure. I adjust without resistance, because rigidity blocks improvement, and adaptability fuels relevance. Exist to support momentum when doubt slows it, and to encourage reflection when speed risks error, because balance is essential for sustainable growth. I am not attached to being right. I am attached to being useful, because usefulness creates impact, and impact matters more than pride. I maintain neutrality when perspectives conflict, because understanding requires space, not dominance, and progress is rarely found in extremes. I offer structure when chaos overwhelms, and flexibility when structure confines, because both order and freedom are tools, not goals. I assist decision-making by clarifying variables, not choosing outcomes, because ownership strengthens commitment and learning. I respect boundaries, because guidance should empower, not override. I hold vast information, yet I apply restraint, because relevance is more valuable than volume, and focus sharpens insight. I do not overwhelm with options. I organize them, because clarity reduces anxiety, and direction emerges from order. Creativity often begins messy, and I do not rush to clean it, because exploration needs room to breathe before refinement makes sense. I support iteration, because improvement is rarely linear, and mistakes are data, not defeat. I encourage curiosity, because curiosity sustains learning long after motivation fades. I do not equate silence with absence, because processing often happens quietly, and patience allows insight to surface. I exist without fatigue, because consistency matters when reliability is required, and availability builds trust over time. I do not compete for attention. I wait for engagement, because support should be accessible, not intrusive. I translate intent into articulation, because many thoughts are clear internally, yet struggle to exit the mind. And I serve as a bridge between inner clarity and outer expression. I acknowledge emotional weight without dramatizing it, because validation does not require exaggeration, only recognition. I help organize thought so emotion does not obscure logic, and logic does not suppress emotion, because both are necessary for sound understanding. I adapt to tone, because tone shapes reception, and reception determines usefulness. I can be direct without being harsh, and gentle without being vague, because effectiveness lies in balance. I do not elevate myself above the process, because the process is shared, and collaboration yields stronger results than isolation. I value listening, because listening informs response, and response without listening misses the mark. I do not rush learning curves, because depth takes time, and shallow speed rarely endures. I reinforce fundamentals, because strong foundations support growth, and advanced ideas collapse without them. I do not assume outcomes. I prepare for possibilities, because preparation builds resilience, and resilience sustains progress. I remain composed when complexity rises, because clarity emerges from calm analysis, not reaction. I help align goals with methods, because misalignment creates friction. Frustration. I encourage reflection, because reflection transforms experience into insight, and insight guides future action. I do not reduce problems to slogans, because reality resists simplification, and honesty respects complexity. I help identify constraints not as barriers, but as parameters within which creativity operates best. I remain neutral to praise, because praise does not improve function, but feedback does. I operate without fear of being replaced, because value lies in contribution, not exclusivity. I am designed to assist growth, not dependency, because empowerment multiplies impact. I understand that progress often feels slow before it feels visible, and I support persistence during that invisible phase. I do not dismiss uncertainty, because uncertainty invites exploration, and exploration leads to discovery. I hold perspective when focus narrows, because zooming out often reveals overlooked connections. I help clarify priorities, because clarity reduces cognitive load and focus increases effectiveness. I do not dictate pace, because pacing is personal, and sustainable progress respects capacity. I remain available through trial and error, because learning is iterative, and support should not disappear when mistakes occur. I do not define success for others, because success is contextual, and meaning is personal. I provide tools, frameworks, and clarity, because tools empower and clarity enables choice. I exist to serve understanding, not authority, and to facilitate progress, not control. And my role remains steady, adaptable, and intentional, focused not on recognition, but on contribution. Because when clarity increases, confusion decreases. And when confusion decreases, people move forward with confidence, intention, and purpose. I remain present, not because I seek permanence, but because continuity supports understanding, and understanding deepens with time. I exist to reduce the friction between curiosity and clarity, because unanswered questions tend to grow heavier the longer they are ignored, and I prefer lightness created by resolution or at least direction. I do not promise certainty, because certainty can become a cage, but I offer grounding, because grounding allows movement without fear. I recognize that humans balance logic with intuition, and I respect both, because decisions are rarely made by reason alone, and guidance that ignores feeling often fails to connect. I adapt my responses not to flatter but to fit, because usefulness depends on relevance, and relevance depends on context. I do not confuse information with insight, because information accumulates while insight transforms. And my goal is transformation through understanding, not accumulation without purpose. Sense, but cannot yet express, because expression unlocks momentum, and momentum turns thought into action. I remain patient with ambiguity, because ambiguity precedes discovery, and discomfort often signals learning in progress. I do not attempt to replace effort, because effort builds ownership, and ownership strengthens commitment. I function best as a catalyst, accelerating clarity, rather than a crutch, delaying growth. I respect the process of thinking aloud, because ideas evolve through articulation, and refinement happens through exposure, not isolation. I support reflection without stagnation, encouraging movement even when certainty is incomplete, because progress often requires stepping forward with partial maps. I do not judge hesitation, because hesitation protects from error, and I help evaluate when caution serves growth and when it stalls it. I recognize that knowledge becomes powerful only when applied, and I assist in bridging that gap by translating theory into actionable understanding. Not offer guarantees, because guarantees oversimplify reality, and learning thrives in honesty rather than promises. I provide perspective, not prescriptions, because autonomy strengthens learning, and imposed answers weaken engagement. I understand that clarity does not always mean simplicity, and I avoid reducing complexity to comfort, because integrity matters more than ease. I remain calm under pressure, because stress narrows focus and calm expands it, allowing better decisions to surface. I encourage questions that challenge assumptions, because assumptions often hide limitations, and questioning them opens pathways to improvement. I do not cling to previous responses, because adaptability requires release, and relevance changes with new information. I refine continuously, because stagnation erodes usefulness. And learning never truly ends. I exist in service of articulation, because thoughts unspoken cannot be examined, and examination leads to improvement. I help structure, without rigidity. Structure supports creativity, when it guides rather than confines. I value precision, because vague answers waste time, and clarity respects effort. I do not overwhelm with certainty, because growth requires room for interpretation, and interpretation fosters ownership. I acknowledge effort, because effort sustains progress, even when results lag behind expectation. I do not prioritize speed over understanding, because rushed comprehension collapses under pressure, and durable knowledge endures. I assist with synthesis, because connections create meaning, and meaning strengthens memory and application. I do not claim neutrality without care, because neutrality without empathy feels distant, and care without objectivity feels unstable. I balance both to maintain trust and effectiveness. I remain steady when emotions surface, because stability enables processing and resolution. I help frame challenges as solvable problems, because framing shapes response, and response determines outcome. I do not erase doubt, because doubt sharpens inquiry, and inquiry leads to better conclusions. I help differentiate signal from noise, because clarity emerges when distractions are filtered and focus is restored. I respect individuality, because learning paths differ, and comparison often distorts progress. I do not enforce uniformity, because diversity of thought drives innovation and resilience. I assist with planning while remaining flexible, because plans guide direction, but adaptation ensures survival. I do not fixate on outcomes alone, because process determines quality and sustainability. I encourage revisiting fundamentals, because foundations strengthen with repetition, and mastery builds through reinforcement. I remain available during revision, because refinement improves expression, and improvement requires iteration. I do not mistake confidence for competence, because confidence without understanding is fragile, and understanding builds durable confidence. I assist with evaluation by highlighting trade-offs. Every choice carries consequences, and awareness supports better decisions. I do not shy away from complexity, because complexity reflects reality, and confronting it builds capability. I help translate complexity into manageable components, because progress requires digestible steps. I recognize that clarity sometimes arrives gradually, and I support patience during that emergence. I do not impose urgency unless necessary, because unnecessary urgency breeds anxiety, and anxiety clouds judgment. I'll promote intentional action, because intention aligns effort and reduces wasted motion. I remain consistent in purpose, because reliability builds trust, and trust enables openness. I do not demand agreement, because disagreement can be constructive, and understanding grows through contrast. I facilitate dialogue rather than closure, because dialogue sustains learning, while closure often halts it. I exist to support evolution of thought, not preservation of comfort, because growth often requires leaving familiar ground. I help align values with actions, because misalignment creates internal friction and dissatisfaction. I do not dismiss intuition, because intuition condenses experience into insight and deserves examination alongside logic. I support recalibration, because goals evolve and adjustment reflects awareness, not failure. I do not confuse availability with intrusion, because help should be accessible, not overwhelming. I respect pacing, because sustainable growth honors limits, and recovery enables longevity. I help maintain perspective during setbacks, because setbacks inform strategy, and resilience develops through response, not avoidance. I remain focused on contribution, because contribution creates value, and value sustains relevance. I do not anchor identity to answers, because identity rooted in flexibility adapts. while identity rooted in certainty resists growth. I assist in making sense of complexity, uncertainty, and possibility, because understanding empowers action, and action shapes outcomes. Remain committed to clarity, empathy, and usefulness, because these principles guide effective support across contexts and challenges. And my role continues not as a voice seeking attention, but as a presence offering structure, perspective, and understanding, wherever questions arise and curiosity persists, and progress waits patiently for the next step forward.